And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the UMG Gaming Studios for the UMG Champions Apex Legends Arena $10,000 Invitational. I'm Taylor Reflections Noble, joined by Onset and T-Squared. It's great to have you boys. We just witnessed a great EU matchup. Unfortunately, some server issues. We hope that doesn't, leak into the NA side of things, but everything should be smooth sailing here. But Onset, what'd you think about that first series?
A lot of fun, and that's my main takeaway from today. I think that all the teams are going to be having a lot of fun. It's kind of, they've all been playing arenas. Everyone's been dipping their toe into arenas, seeing how things work out. But there's been a few pro scrims going on. There's been a few little tournaments starting to crop up. But this is the first kind of real example of players going up against each other with full rosters and things like that. So I think there's bragging rights to take away from today as well. Because we always look at BRs and we're like, this team's a really good team fighting team. They always win their 3v3s. But there's always the lingering third party. There's always the little shot that came in from a corner. No excuses here. This is you, mano a mano, against the other team. If you lose, you're not as good as team fighting. It's as simple as that. You've got no excuses.
It's true. I mean, BR, obviously, there's a lot of factors. There's a lot of X factors that can kind of mess up your engagement, T-Square. But in arenas, it's just strictly 3v3. It's a lot more or a lot less, I should say, that you kind of have to manage, right? You had a chance to cast a couple of days ago in Esports Arena tournament when it came to arena in general. I think the teams here, though, are going to be bringing more heat to the table, if you will. But variety is a spice of life, but we didn't get much variety during that first EU matchup, unfortunately, in terms of the legends. But the tournament you had a chance to cast, T-Squared, had a lot of variety legend-wise.
Yeah, we didn't get a lot of variety. We also didn't get a lot of variety in terms of the weapons that we saw. We saw a lot of straight-up wingman fights. We saw a lot of people going for the care packages. But all in all, I was surprised to see people not utilize weapons like buying the Havoc or going something a little bit more unorthodox. I think we saw the longbow there was working. But one of the things that I loved was just Aqualix and the way that they were able to play situationally and the way that they were kind of getting a feel for the way that Navi was playing. And they started to make adjustments. And as we go on through the tournament, obviously we have, not just today, we have tomorrow. These teams are going to be studying each other, looking for strategies, and there's a lot of counters that come in, and it just kind of brings out that old arena style on what, Onset and I kind of grew up playing, which was Halo. So it's just kind of awesome to see because everything happens right from the get-go. The initial strategies that you have, the opening frags that you have, everything's so important. It's not just, flying in the plane and looking around to see where people are going to land. It's about getting to your spot and getting there as fast as possible.
Yeah, the only one that I think they kind of, butt heads on was just Garden. That was a quick 3-0. You really didn't have to think too much on that one. But when you did have other maps like Artillery and such, which Artillery for me was the most exciting match to watch. I loved the use of the Octane high ground retakes. Aqualix just played that absolutely perfectly. I can't wait to see how they're going to perform going on NA host against NA teams. But we have two talented teams here, Team Liquid and XSET, which I say talented. And XSET obviously is going to be that team kind of, the outlier, if you will, on sets, primarily built up Valorant players. In fact, it is their Valorant official team, but BCJ has a lot of competitive history when it comes to Apex.
He does, and I think this is what's known in the industry for Team Liquid as a potential banana skin. There's no way that they can come out of this well if they do not win. Liquid need to win this series. They need to win it well. They need to win it convincingly. But at the same time, you're going up against some crazy mechanical players. Anyone who's playing Valorant in the top tier is able to hit shots. Put a wingman in their hand, they're going to be able to hit shots. And if they listen to BCJ with his experience of Apex as well, then you never know what could happen. But for Liquid, I'm sure this is just a game they're thinking, I just want to get through this one. This is the worst thing that can happen is us possibly losing this game. So get through this one, feel good, move on.
All right, well, T-Squared, it's kind of like if Liquid beats XSET, it's to be expected, but if they lose, there can be a lot of maybe trash talk that comes with that. They could be feeling down on themselves thinking, can we really win this tournament? But, when it does come to XSET, obviously we mentioned Valorant, popping on those headshots. You're not going to be able to get a one headshot with a Vandal, all right? That just doesn't exist at Apex, right? But do you think maybe that setup-heavy kind of style, that setup-heavy game can play well into maybe Apex Arena?
I do. I think that the most important thing, though, is the overall strategy that they have, the knowledge that they have in arenas. I think that their general Apex knowledge is going to be there. They're going to know how to shoot. They're going to know how to strafe. The mechanics are going to be there. But, will they understand what to use in terms of their econ? Will they understand, getting to certain spots and holding head glitches? Will they understand when to buy grenades, when to buy, a gold backpack when you actually need it? What will be the team composition that comes up? We haven't seen Lifeline quite yet. We only saw one round. Right. I do think that there was a great point that was brought up by Girl and Fallout that the fights are going to take place so fast that the reses may not be able to happen. But the thing is getting that potential pro player back up is scary. So if you get a lifeline on your team, maybe even like lifeline Gibraltar, it's tough to say who that third player could be, because you want to have the octane pad when you need it. You want to have the zip line to get to certain places, but you do kind of want that res too. That's why Gibraltar and the shield comes up so useful. But I'm curious to see who's going to use what. I mean, we may even see some really cheesy stuff, like Rampart gets really annoying as well.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, variety, spice of life, and I hope we get to see a little bit more than just a standard 3 of Gibby and who else do we have? I think Gibby, Octane, and Pathfinder has kind of been the standard. It's a great combination, though. It works in arenas. Let's take a look at the maps that we're rolling with. Obviously, there's going to be 6 played competitively, but only 5 because it's a best of 5. And in this case, for round 2, we will not be having, or excuse me, this is round 1, so we won't be having overflows. So fair enough. So we just seen these 5 maps and kind of how they played out. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see game 5 on set for Thermal Station, but for the 4 that you did see, did anything stand out? Maybe something different you would like to see Team Liquid or XSET do in this series?
I think they all kind of played as I would expect. I don't think there were any real surprises. Phase Runner, excuse me, is one of those maps where initially you're always talking poke damage just because of the fact that, you know, you spawn so far away from the other team comparatively to some of the other maps that we do see in this series, that poke damage is huge. You kind of have the ring forcing teams together, which is really where you start to see those engagements. But Gardens is one of the closer range maps that we saw, and that's the one that we did see Na'Vi come out on top of. That's where you can get up in their face. That's where you can get really aggressive with some shotguns in your hand, but then you flip it again to artillery. There's nice pacing across the series, which is what I like. And Party Crasher for me, I think is one of the best maps we have in arenas. I think it's really well balanced for close range, but also doing that poke damage. So I think it's a really nice series. I think we get to see a lot of different variety of play styles and how teams will play it. And I don't think we saw anything too crazy. And to be honest, I don't think we'll see anything too crazy, but you never know with Apex and arenas. People do crazy things all the time.
I mean, and it's still very new, isn't it? So I'm expecting quite a few different different looks, whether it be weapon-wise, legend-wise, and overall just strategy in general, which I'm hoping it will develop into something a little bit more. Obviously, this is like the first true competitive tournaments being hosted on when it comes to arena. I expect the kind of meta and strategy to develop over time. Party Crasher, it's funny you say that's one of the best arena maps. I guess Fallout's really on his own because he just doesn't like Party Crasher for whatever reason, but I think it plays well for what it's worth. I really do. So T-Square, we put a lot of emphasis on XSET. We already know they're coming back or coming in from Valorant BCJ, right? We kind of covered all that. When it comes to Team Liquid, we don't know who the third's going to be, but we do know 2 of them. It's going to be Nocturnal and Flanker. What can we expect from them?
Well, it's not going to be Fallout because he's obviously really bad at Party Crashers. I think that's the only reason he doesn't like that map. I mean, you only hate what you don't understand, right? Fallout? No,
that's true.
But I'm not really sure. They actually were using someone, the actual name was Phil this week, and I was saying, hey, look, they got a Phil. So I don't really know. I don't really know who they're going to use. It's not Hodsick. I just tuned into his stream. He's playing arenas right now with Frex. So very confused who that's going to be. But one thing's for sure, they're on the search for a new third, and it's going to be exciting to see who they find because anyone could come and play with those 2 players and do really well, but who's going to do great? Who's going to play to that Team Liquid performance that they know that they could do? And, in terms of who do I think is going to win this one, I think that Team Liquid's going to have this one in the bag in terms of who they're facing, because I do have a lot of respect for XSET and their roster, but I just really think that this Liquid team has a lot to play for and they have a lot to prove, even though this is kind of a tournament for a lot of money, but also for fun.
Fair enough. All right, Team Liquid's a fair pick on set. It really is, and obviously I'm going to ask you, but I do want to pose a question to you on set before you do answer. Team Liquid, yes, they don't have their third. It's kind of up in the air who it's going to be, but do you have enough faith in the 2 of Flanker Nocturnal to be able to beat maybe the XSET roster, who's not as well versed in Apex?
Yes, I'll give you a more simple answer than that, to be honest with you. I think that the experience these 2 players have, Nocturnal and Flanker, is something that not a lot of people have in the Apex scene. It's not just the fact that they've won, been putting in huge performances in tournaments. It's the consistency. They've done it since day one. So anyone who's going to be joining them is going to be, like Tom said, alongside 2 of the best, most experienced players in the game. I want to know who this enigma of Phil is as well, because I love it when you see a player start, playing under a little tag, maybe trying to keep things a little bit hush-hush, secret, like we've seen before with what was Monsoon called back in the day? Was it Hot Dog Sausage Man, something like that? But Phil, that was what he was known as back in the day when he was trying out for a team. But I think Liquid. I think anything else would be very, very naive of me to say.
Fair enough. I mean, like you said, whoever the third's going to be is obviously going to be very talented. I would be hard pressed to see chat go with XSET, but maybe they want to go with the underdog and they're backing them. They're not. So it's Team Liquid for all three. Fair enough. I would be going TL myself personally. You just got to go with the history of Flanker Nocturnal, right? And whoever the third's going to be, I'm sure they're going to be in good hands. But XSET, it's up to you. Everybody's betting against you. Let's see what you can do on set. T-Squared, take it away.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited for this, Tom. I've got to be honest. I've been sitting there watching, enjoying every single moment of our first series today. And now it's our chance to jump onto the cast and see some real Arenas gameplay. And I'm interested to see what Liquid do in this series, to be honest with you, because as I said, potential banana skin is the only way you can put it for them. If it doesn't go well, they will remember this for a long time.
If it doesn't work out for them, they could just tap me and, I'll get the Watson 360 generators. I'll only buy grenades. I'll play Fuse just like your buddy and only throw grenades. It's just going to be the way that it is.
I can't believe you're leaking the secret strats already, Tom. I mean, if anyone's played Arenas, they haven't played Fuse and you're just using grenades, you're missing out.
Yeah,
a lot of fun. But
I'll play Fuse, you play Rampart, and we'll just be as annoying as possible.
Hey, it's what we do best, Tom. Anyway, let's get into our first round, and it is going to be a little bit of a change in composition here for
fun.
Team Liquid. You can see the Fun is going to be playing. Not a bad pickup here, and already getting aggressive on the Pathfinder P20 Mozambique, and also Bangalore. You can already see the smoke going down here, Tom.
Yeah, and you can see XSET isn't ready for the strats that Team Liquid is bringing to the table. We've already seen 3 great maneuvers. Well, maybe even more than that. We see the big grapple coming in from Fun. We see the Bangalore smoke on over towards the pill. And then we see the owning of real estate on their side. So you do have the zone being played, but at the same time, you have to love just the aggressiveness and the unity that they had on that Liquid side. But let's see if that was just a spectator error, and it was. Getting right back into this one. And Wingman Mozambique is going to always be the most popular combo that you're going to see for players to start out. And actually, surprisingly, going to get rid of the Wingman and go with Spitfire 30-30. So long range plus the chopper.
But yeah, the 2 times on the 30-30 is certainly going to give them a little bit of something to work with at that kind of range. XSET with that rotation, and there is that 30-30. Peter hitting hard, 44 now, but Nocturnal going to be forced to back up here and use one of those batteries. And exchanging damage is such a huge thing in these first couple of rounds that we do see, Tom. The lack of meds that teams do have on their side means that initial damage really can be capitalized on and also allow you to push up into strong positions to try and execute.
And you'll notice that there's no Gibraltar right now on Team Liquid. So that's the one advantage right now that XSET has, is when it comes to, these bubble fights or getting out into the open, maybe a little bit later when they need a defensive environment. And BCJ opens things up with an initial knock right there on the Fun. Here goes the charge from the rest of the players. Flanker's going to drop as well. And now it's just up to Nocturnal, who has gotten 1 knock, but this is a 2-on-1 situation.
Oh, and there comes the flatline as well. And I tell you what, ladies and gents, we're in for a series already. XSET will take home the first round of our game number 1. Good morning, Team Liquid. If you weren't awake right now, it's time to brew yourself a coffee and join us because, that was perfectly executed from them. You have to say, the initial knock, they got that, and then they took advantage. They collapsed on those last 2 players, and no players going down in any round of Arenas when you take home the win, Tom, is about as good as you can ask for.
Yeah, you can't get knocked in that type of situation, especially so quickly. And we were talking about the Wingman and how useful that is. The Flatline is another very popular purchase. You see a lot of players pick that one up. Wingman, EVA 8 is going to be the combination for Flanker. This is going to be more of a portal zone, so both teams most likely should meet here. And I want to see if any grenades are going to be purchased from either one of these teams. It looks like there's actually going to be a separation. XSET takes a little bit of an unorthodox angle on over towards this left side. And BCJ is going to be looking for some more damage over here. It's going to be a full send coming in from Liquid. It's going to be initial knocks coming in from both players. 2-on-2 situation. Big bubble fight happening right now as Fun's trying to hit a battery. Flanker's still full shields. Battery is going to be hit, and both players are going to focus on over towards Fun. Flanker was nowhere to be found. XSET surprising us so far. I'm not sure if Flanker's going to be able to get through this.
No, he's not. He's down. He's out. And that is 2-0 to XSET. And I'll tell you what, the banana skin, it's almost like a cartoon scene at the moment because there is more than one apparently in front of Team Liquid at the moment as they go down 2-0 in the series. And I've got to say, one thing that's impressed me so much from XSET so far is as soon as they get the initial damage, Tom, there's no second guessing. They push in immediately and try and get that initial knock to give them the advantage. It really is pretty impressive to see from this lineup.
They have the shots. They have the decision making. I mean, I was a little bit worried when Team Liquid flies out with the great initial strategy. You see the pro Bangalore smokes, the sick fat grapple. But when it comes to the actual skirmish, I don't really see Team Liquid working together. They're just kind of falling apart one by one. They're going to need to start working as one instead of kind of separating. Kind of like how they were running together in the beginning of round number 1. They went away from that. They got a little bit thrown off by the way that XSET's playing. Unorthodox to kind of play this passive-aggressive style. They've, decided not to take the portal. Then all of a sudden they're sitting around and BCJ is taking these great Pathfinder angles. And what is a Pathfinder angle? Well, that's always being within grapple distance of your teammates. So it allows you to kind of take an angle that other teams wouldn't necessarily expect, and then you can hit a grapple to get back on over towards your team and the bubble if that's absolutely needed. But Team Liquid's going to have to find some initial damage, and there it is, 100, and then the grenade on top of that to boot. Flanker going big. That's the round that Team Liquid's going to need, and that's all but over.
Triple digit damage is what you look for, and now it is just the last player to go down. He will go down indeed, and Liquid now on the board. You were talking about that initial damage there, Tom, and you talked about the impact of grenades as well, and we've just seen it in front of our very eyes. That one single grenade, especially when a team is clustered up, can be so devastating, and Team Liquid finally on the board here.
Team Liquid really needed that round too. I mean, they were one away from being down and then getting swept. The confidence was just going to go heavily in XSET's favor, but right now Team Liquid can answer, and maybe it's grenades. Longbow EVA 8 from Fun. This means to me that they're not going to play this portal game, but they're postured towards the portal. So this is a really interesting buy from Fun. I want to see how this is going to work out.
He's going to try and clip someone who comes through that portal. You can see already pre-aiming, the exit. But once again, XSET not moving towards zone initially. They're taking this wide rotation and prioritizing those meds. And kind of, to be honest, outthinking their opponents a little bit here. The longbow shot did hit, but it wasn't enough damage to really cause any kind of problems. And those extra meds are going to allow now XSET to get back up to a full health. And Team Liquid now taking the central ground around where this large rock formation is, and with a little bit more range in their hands at the moment, they can kind of do some more damage, but it's going to be up to them to potentially make a move towards XSET, as XSET can kind of bide their time a little bit. They can wait. They've got the advantage as far as round's concerned. I'll tell you what, Tom, the longbow, it does damage.
The longbow actually works out in Fun's favor here because of the fact that they didn't take the portal. He's an absolute psycho for zooming in on where that portal was and expecting to hit his shots there, but there it is, 120 across the map right there. He's already done 930 so far in these rounds, so he's looking pretty solid. Nocturnal's going to be able to pick up those meds as they figure out how they're going to go exactly play this zone. This head glitch right here is kind of a nuisance to deal with from the enemy side, as you're going to see Pure has to make his move in towards the zone. The rest of his teammates you can see on the minimap and directly in front of him. A couple of rocks to hide behind, but if you do have a grenade and Fun is just nailing shots left and right, grappling through the defensive bombardment as well. That's a lot of golden credits spent on something that's not going to connect, and Team Liquid going to go and push this 2 versus 3. That's going to be now a 3 versus 1. Big shots coming in from Fun. I was making fun of the longbow. I guess I shouldn't.
You're allowed to take it back. It's fine. Once we see these kind of things in practice, then, everybody's learning, right? The longbow really hitting hard there from Fun. It's one thing to have the weapon in your hand, as we always say. It's another to convert it into huge amounts of damage. And even though XSET did take that wide rotation to start to get those meds, the longbow just burnt through them. Just that initial damage, we saw the 60, the totaling up to 120, which is going to be more than a battery. To get yourself back up to a full complement of health was enough to really allow them to do the damage. And then that initial knock again, Tom, with the longbow really was a little bit of a game changer. And now you're starting to see maybe a little bit of that Apex Legends knowledge start to creep in from Fun, knowing that XSET taking those wider routes, trying to keep that distance and look for initial damage. The longbow might be the way to change that into Team Liquid's favor.
No doubt about it. They're taking these unorthodox angles. They're making the game very interesting. This is what you expect typically, more of a brawl. This head-on-head, straight-up head glitching type of platform versus platform fight. Grenades come into use. Wall peeking comes into use. Flanker going to try to hit some shots. The grenades looks like they're not going to connect as well, but they did spend a lot on utility right here. A little utility on both sides. Double time going to come into effect right there for Flanker, as he's going to evade that grenade as well. And also another longbow being purchased. So not the shots that looked as smooth as from the other side on Team Liquid and Fun. But nonetheless, let's see what happens without a bubble. It's going to be difficult. There's a push coming in from Pure, but Nocturnal going to punish that one. And that's going to be now a 2-on-1 situation for Fun and Nocturnal. Nocturnal going to do the smart play, hit the battery here. Longbow Eva 8, it's going to be so difficult to deal with in this situation.
Yeah, AYRIN's going to be the last player alive here, and he's going to be not longed for the map for much longer. And Team Liquid, after a little bit of a scare at the start of this one, Tom, have turned things around 3 rounds in a row in their favor now, and just 1 round away from closing things out. But it has been, as soon as the buy rounds started to evolve a little bit, as soon as there was a few more materials to be used in that eco sort of area buying, the buy phase, whatever you want to call it, and they've started to mix things up a little bit with the weaponry and how they've tried to approach this one, then XSET have struggled to kind of retaliate to that. You expecting them to stay with that longbow in this round? You expecting maybe something else just to try and close this one out for them?
What do we call it? Do we call that buying round, or do we call it shoppy time? What do we want to call that one?
Shoppy time. I'm gonna shut that one down immediately. Shoppy time forever is what it will now be known as in arenas. I mean, Tom, I don't know what to say. I hope you kept the receipt for that one. That's all I'm gonna say.
There's the Havoc. I was waiting for that to be used. I really think the Havoc's pretty strong in these situations. Now Flanker gonna do his best Nicewig impersonation over here. That's going to be a battery having to be popped. And I love when the teams decide that they're going to go and fight face-to-face in this type of situation. We've seen some really kind of weird plays to start, especially from the XSET side. It was kind of throwing Team Liquid off, but now it looks like they're ready to box this one out face-to-face. But a little bit of a slow poke here. And this is what's been favoring Liquid a lot of times. Liquid has been just doing massive amount of damage so fast. They refuse to do anything less than 100, which is just absolutely ridiculous. Now Nocturnal realizing the situation. He's trying to stem out of there, but BCJ with the scout.
I mean, initially the Skynades were absolutely wonderful. They did so much damage, but the bubble went down, and then Nocturnal, having done the damage and tried to capitalize on it, just got caught out of position and then just got beamed. And Nocturnal now, he's downed, and he might be able to just about creep around this corner. The Eve 8's going to have the Digi threat on as well, which might combine well with those Bangalore smokes, but now it's going to be a kill traded here. Fun once again stepping up here. For Team Liquid towards the end of this game, BCJ, the last player alive, Fun in a 1v1 against him. Going to get that battery off as well. Eva 8 and Havoc to work with. BCJ, part of the old guard of Apex, against one of the players who loves to clutch up in 1v1 situations in ranked. There's a 63 after the 50. There's a 46 as well. 1 HP aside. Team Liquid and Fun step up in the 1v1 and make sure they take home map number 1. But that was, Tom, one heck of a map 1.
That was intense right there. The 1v1 to end it, to get the dub. And man, just a little bit of an over peak right there, and not any utility with having grenades is the end of XSET, but they're putting up a fight. Honestly, Onset, I think that we have a match here. This isn't quite over yet. They won the first 2 rounds, but Liquid answers with 4 in a row.
I mean, what else could you want from a first map, Tom? We had 2 rounds in a row going to the underdog. We're thinking all of a sudden, this isn't looking good for Team Liquid. Then we had shoppy time. I mean, something which I'll never forget, to be honest, in the middle of a series. And then we had the comeback from Team Liquid, and we round it out with a 1v1. I think we've just seen a great example there of, in one map, what Arena can offer in, you know, the competitive settings. You see these massive clutch moments. You see these adjustments of strategy between teams and different ways to approach things as well, which I think is always only going to develop as teams play more and more against each other.
Seemed like they were a little bit unwarmed up on the Liquid side once the shots got going, once the communication warmed up, and once they kind of hunkered down. I think that they were feeling what we were all feeling on the broadcast team, is that, hey, this is a pro Valorant squad, right? We're going to come through as Apex pros and take them down. Well, guess what? BCJ opened things up fairly hot on the XSET side. And remember, he was one of our top players that we had in the early seasons of Apex before he switched on over to Valorant. So he wants to win this one, and I'm sure that his teammates want to win it for him too as well, and for themselves. So we'll see how they fare up against Liquid. But Fun was clutching it out as this new third filling in for Team Liquid.
I mean, he's been hitting some shots. Fun has been the game changer so far for Team Liquid. That longbow really was effective. However, as we move over to Gardens now, after the 4-2 win on Phase Runner for Team Liquid, maybe the longbow won't be quite as effective here, Tom. We saw in our first series of the day between Aqualix and their opponents, Na'Vi, that this got a little bit more close quarters, a little bit more up in your face, and we saw Wingman and Eva 8 really starting to come to the fore.
One of the things that we didn't see that much in Gardens is the split of high ground versus low ground, because the battle for the high ground was constant. But what's going to happen is if these teams feel like they're not going to get to the high ground, the best thing to do is drop directly below down where the zip line is. And then you have to play this cat and mouse game where the zone's going to continue to move and the team off the top has to drop. And then the two teams are going to meet directly above each other and below each other. So it's always an interesting spot on Gardens. We'll see if it even gets to that point. We haven't seen the zones kind of get to the final circle quite yet, but we'll see if XSET wants to slow things down.
I think it's a really good point that you make as well, and it's something which is kind of unique as well to Apex Legends. A lot of the times you think high ground is always going to win, right? But if you get into a position where those lines of sight are denied by the team above you, it's something that I remember right back we go to Poland, Snipedown talked about a lot about. It was like when you have multiple teams stacked up and against each other in the Battle Royale, then actually being the team down on the lowest ground is the best because of what you've just said there. All the teams have to drop, and when they're dropping, they get stunned when they land, and all these things become a little bit more difficult. So it's going to be interesting to see how that does play out here, but you can see we're already in a beautiful map to fly through here, and that means that we're about to get into our second map of the series. Team Liquid up by 1 over XSET, and now we're heading to Gardens.
Gardens, it kind of reminds me of a mall, and a mall reminds me of Shoppy Time, which is happening right now.
It's Shoppy Time, baby. It's Shoppy Time.
But this map is absolutely ridiculous in terms of Pathfinder and Octane being extremely strong. So expect after round 1 players to upgrade and get the zip lines, get the jump pads, and start just kind of full sending. It looks like Team Liquid is going to have to restart this one. We're going to have to get a mulligan on this round. One of the players didn't load in. Nocturnal didn't. So we're going to come right back to us and get ready for this next round. Unlucky right there. I'm glad that we didn't start that one, though, in a 2 versus 3. Unlike our ranked games, sometimes that happen.
Hey, 2 versus 3, as we know, Tom, when it's me and you, it doesn't matter how many people are against us. It could be the entire lobby, and we will still hit the 360 gens in the middle of nowhere. It's what happens. But, I mean, we will get back into the game as soon as possible. Apologies to everyone for the technical issues as well. One thing that we can't control here on the broadcast is what happens in-game. But, let's talk a little bit about this Liquid lineup, because a lot of conversation maybe should be had, and it's a real good opportunity to do so. One of the most dramatic roster changes that we've seen in recent times, with Albrelli obviously leaving, joining Cloud9. I want to get your views on that, because it's a big change. It's a big risk from Cloud9, as we're talking about BRs a little bit more here for people who are watching maybe for the first times and tuning in for arenas. But Albrelli, as I said, left Team Liquid to join Cloud9, who had just had a great performance in the in LGS Championships. What do you think on the move? Risky? Do you think it's ballsy? How do you see it panning out?
I think that it sucks that Noct didn't even get a chance to celebrate with like some surf and turf or a beer or a shoey or something like that with his teammates.
No Shoppy Time.
After winning so much money together, after getting second place, you would really feel like you'd want to celebrate and bond. Obviously, with the pandemic, slowly coming to an end, people really not getting together in person quite yet. But I really feel like that's a moment that you really would want to share together, and that's something that was missed. But in terms of actual play styles, in terms of pickups, Albrelli is one of the best players that we have in Apex. Noct is one of the best players in Apex. It's extremely difficult to see, how that's going to work out. We still don't know where Noct's going to go. We don't know who the third that Liquid's going to be. We do know that C9 is playing with Albrelli. Noct is out, he's in, and they're slowly but surely making adjustments. And Albrelli is someone that has a little bit of adjusting to do, because he's just so darn good. His pace is so fast. Noct plays extremely fast as well. But Albrelli, he loves to fly in, he loves to create damage, and he loves to create opportunities. So you go from, a controller player who's got a completely different style, to a mouse and keyboard player who's one of the most crazy mechanical players that we have in Apex.
I think it's an interesting, from my personal opinion, I think it's one of those moves made by Cloud9, which I really respect. I feel obviously incredibly bad for Noct after the performance. He was absolutely unbelievable, but I just think that, that you've got to have this winning mentality, right? Second place is great, but maybe they felt that passing on Albrelele, a player who's won multiple tournaments before, was something they just couldn't afford to do. They want to be the #1 team, Cloud9. They want to be taking over at the top of the tree. And I think it's one of those risky moves that it's easy to say if it doesn't work, you should have never made that move. But if it does work, then it becomes one of those moments of genius for me. And I kind of respect it. I've got to be honest with you. I think it's, as I say, one of the ballsiest roster moves we've seen, but I kind of like it, Tom. I kind of like it, gotta be honest.
I can say from personal experience, after making team changes willingly or willingly making team changes after getting second never worked out for me. I think I did that 2 or 3 times in my career. All turned out disastrous, honestly, just turned out horribly. So,
at least you're honest about it. A little bit of self-reflection now. The time has passed.
Yeah, I'm going to be kicking rocks for that one. Sorry to Illamite for that one, a long-term friend though. But, here's the thing is Team Liquid, they're going to be having to get motivated now. And Al really says that he was motivated as well. It adds a little bit of drama. It adds, another interesting layer. And Al has actually been in the middle of 2 of the biggest team changes that we've seen with TSM and with Snipe Down. He obviously addressed it in terms of what he thought was, was taking place there, and felt like he was being forced into like kind of a retirement situation. And then he played a little bit of Valorant. And speaking of a Valorant team, we have XSET here, and we have BCJ, who got a lot of game time in the early days of Apex. Playing with him, he's got a great attitude. He's got a great style of play, mechanically extremely gifted as well. Obviously, this kind of lies on his back. He's the one that's telling his teammates exactly how to play this. They have a huge uphill battle against this Team Liquid squad.
They do, especially with Fun, once again, with the longbow in hand. And purchasing it early as well, you can see he doesn't have any attachments. He's just going to be using that iron sight to try and do the damage and manage to do a little bit of it as well. And it's actually going to be XSET who are going to be forced to move up, as now they are going to do that. And those shots from Nocturnal with the wingman are going to be enough to get that first knock for them. A 2v3 now, Tom, and you have to feel that Liquid will be able to close this one out.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to be able to... Oop, there it is. Now it's just up to BCJ. Nocturnal's been taking some unorthodox angles and has been looking fairly strong with the wingman. But that's another XSET kind of weirdo play, in my opinion, where they're just kind of doing this style that is kind of throwing Liquid off, and Liquid's like, what's going on here? Where are they coming from? And obviously with Bloodhound banned, it makes things just so much more difficult to predict where things are. And I love that we don't have the L-Star. I love that we don't have Bloodhound in here.
Oh, yeah.
Those 2 things are just extremely powerful, especially in the arena mode. So it makes these skirmishes so entertaining.
I completely agree with you. I think the fact that we don't have either of those is really makes it a little bit more of a competitive environment, so to speak, the best way to put it. But I am going back to your point there about XSET doing things a little bit funky and taking some interesting angles. It worked initially. However, as soon as Fun's pulled out this longbow, it really has allowed Team Liquid to negotiate that. He's kind of been the scout for the team, and immediately with the jump pad as well. Not only is he going to be scouting, he's going to be allowing his teammates to move up and grab those meds as well. And you can see a very similar setup to what we saw before. Team Liquid are going to be holding this low ground. They're going to be holding zone. And again, it's going to be down now to XSET to make their move towards Team Liquid. And with that longbow in hand, it's not going to be that easy. However, that shot's pretty good. Mozambique isn't going to be too good though, and that's going to be the first kill, or the first knock I should say here, going down to Liquid. Make that 2, and now once again, BCJ, a lonely man up on top of that little runway.
Flanker not even going to use the battery. He's going to elect to use the cells here. Now Nocturnal's going to fully heal throughout all of this. Everybody on XSET just got a little bit too, I guess, excited in terms of, hey, where is Team Liquid? We have all this real estate to work with. This is awesome news, but it wasn't, because the fact that they were just kind of baiting around the corner. So now BCJ stuck between a rock and a hard place, plus a zone that is going to burn big time. Just with the scout, it's not going to really work out in their favor. Team Liquid looking strong. XSET started off fairly strong, but they have not been able to win a round since Liquid has been heating up. And honestly, since Team Liquid switched on over to the longbow, it's been all downhill. XSET's been trying to use the longbow to answer, just hasn't been working.
Yeah, completely agree with you. I think the only good thing that could have come out of that situation there for BCJ was maybe a Twitter clip as he 1v3'd Liquid, but that's a very, very rare occurrence. So you can see there the final shot as he does go down, take a little bit of damage as well from the ring. And now Team Liquid have the opportunity to close out map number 2 here in some style as well. You have to say, not really been contested by XSET in the way that we saw on map 1. It's been all Liquid top.
I love the way that Liquid's been playing. The response has been phenomenal. We were talking about adjustments, and adaptation, how you need to kind of get a feel for how your opponent is making moves, and the longbow's been the perfect answer because you have to get eyes on where these players are moving, and you're going to need something besides that regular scope that you're going to be getting. So don't want to deal with the iron sights. You want to try to get something like that 2-4. That's exactly what BCJ was thinking. He's also thinking ultimate high ground. So this has probably been the best positioning that we've seen from XSET for quite some time. And let's see if they can capitalize on this now and what will be the move from Team Liquid. A little bit of a sneaky play, crouching up.
The slippers are on.
Yeah, let's see. Is this a Valorant play? Is this a Valorant play? I don't know.
This might well be. The slippers are on. There's no footsteps. They're being extremely sneaky, and now they're going to make their aggressive push. And Flanker is going to be at the front of that. Nocturnal now going to be able to take that zip line, having had that area secured by his teammates. And all of a sudden, you're going to see all players looking down the barrel at each other. It looks like the initial damage was done once again by Team Liquid, and the initial knock has actually come in now from Nocturnal, taking down BCJ with that EVA 8, manages to get the finish, and now they have the high ground, they have the top, and there's a right cross onto Gibby to knock him down off the high ground. Nocturnal is king of the castle at the moment, and Liquid look like they're going to close this one out in style. The wingman shots are going to connect, and hey, that's more like it from Team Liquid. They will win this map 3-0, and they will go up 2 in the series.
Yeah, Team Liquid making it look easy there. I really think that was inexperience on Gardens. Difficult to go and play that one, and Team Liquid really picking them apart. The adjustments again to switch on over to the longbow, figuring out where players are going, getting a little bit extra information. That extra vision is just so crucial for Team Liquid so they can go and decide how they want to methodically pick XSET apart, and that's exactly what they did. I mean, Nocturnal heating up with the wingman right there. We saw Fun heating up with the longbow. Everybody really doing their part on the Team Liquid side.
Yeah, Liquid looking really good. I like how they played that last game as well. You know, they tried something a little bit different. They tried to take the low ground, having realized the ring pool was away from them, and then sneaked up on them, got that initial knock. And once you get the initial knock in any kind of elimination game type, Tom, it's absolutely massive, just because of the fact that, you know, you have 3 guns versus 2. It sounds as stupid as you could possibly imagine, but sometimes keeping things as simple as possible is the most important thing. And they managed to do that. So congratulations to Team Liquid. They go up 2 in the series. It's time for us to take a short break before we get back for game number 3, but that's going to be just around the corner, so don't go anywhere.
Welcome back, everybody, to the UMG Champions Apex Legends Arena $10,000 Invitational. I'm Taylor Reflections Noble, joined by T-Squared and Onset, and we've seen 2 maps now as Team Liquid, the favorite, at least in our predictions, does in fact take the lead, although things got a little bit scary on map 1, Phase Runner, where obviously we've seen a great breakout from XSET, taking the first 2 rounds, but ever since, it's been, XSET has been completely shut down. I mean, literally, it's been what, I think, 5 straight rounds at this point in time. But anyways, I digress. Onset, it seems as if, you know, the funky plays that you kind of been pointing out alongside that of T-Squared is, you know, worked at least at the beginning. But once you go back to the ABCs of what Apex Legends is all about, XSET really doesn't have a leg to stand on. They're forced to make mistakes, and they are making those mistakes. And unfortunately for them, Team Liquid is capitalizing.
Oh, 100%. Team Liquid's looked really good. Apart from those couple of early rounds, you know, happens. I think Tom made a really good point, maybe just expecting to steamroll through their opponents, but then they get the little wake-up call, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, boys, it's time to start playing properly now, try and step it up. And I think one thing that we can take away from what we've seen so far is something we're going to see more and more as Arenas is played more and more at a competitive level, which is, you know, strategy, counter-strategy. And then the counter-strategy to that, we saw XSET taking these wide rotations to start with, staying away from those initial straight conflicts with Team Liquid, and then, you know, Team Liquid realizing that and thinking, hey, we can just poke damage here. We can burn through their meds. We can use that longbow. Fun took that upon himself to do so. And unfortunately, XSET maybe just don't have the knowledge or a thought process to try and argue back against that to counter-strat themselves. So it's been pretty much one-sided from there. But you will see some of the other pro teams going up against, you know, the likes of Liquid when things like this do happen. Then they're going to change things, whether it's composition, whether it's weapons. It's all going to kind of evolve as we see these teams going up against each other. And it's always exciting to watch.
Yeah, and T-Squared, it seems like XSET really wants to force an engagement. They want to get up close and personal. They're confident in their shot. We know they're literally at the top level of Valorant. In fact, I believe they're going to the next tournament in general. They ended up qualifying. But with that being said, they're confident in their shot. We knew they would be crispy. But overall, they're not getting that pushback anymore like they were on Phase Runner, where they were able to get up close and personal. Creating that distance has been important. And you've been a big fan. Well, you weren't a fan in the beginning, but you ended up taking it back. The longbow being in place has been instrumental to Team Liquid's success, it seems.
What do you mean? I've been loving the longbow ever since I saw it. Right from the first time that they took it out, I was talking about what a great idea it was. But seriously, what we're gonna see now, in my opinion, or what I would like to see from XSET, is taking that break that we just had, even though it was just a minute or two, and taking a little bit of page out of your book reflections and saying, okay, we're looking for these fights. Well, let's take the fights to them then. Right now, what's happening is once the longbow is actually purchased, Liquid's getting vision of where they are, and they're approaching the fight methodically and kind of creeping up and deciding how they want to go and execute. Now, if you're on the other side of XSET, you have to kind of boost right past that, fly right by them, and just take the fight directly towards them.
We have artillery coming up next, which is going to be a very unique map. Maybe an opportunity to get up close and personal. Could work out for the XSET boys. We'll definitely find out. I'm curious to see, though, if they are going to be able to coordinate and maybe take over high ground. Obviously, that was huge for the earlier series, the two EU teams of Na'Vi and Aqualix. They're doing a great job using, Octane's jump pad ultimately to take over high ground and retake it for themselves. We saw some kind of funky plays, too, kind of camping it up with the Arc Stars 3 in each hand of the members of Aqualix. I'm not sure if we'll see that at this point in time, but going into this onset artillery, right? We've already seen 2 L's given to XSET. What is something that they can do to maybe turn things around for their favor? What can they do to battle against TL?
I would look at legend picks and I would think about Bangalore. Reason being, the longbow's been so effective. If you can get some smokes down, you can deny some crosses, you can deny some vision for fun with that longbow, who I'm pretty sure is going to continue with that kind of thing. And if they can do that, it allows them to close ground. It allows them to get up close and personal, where they were having a little bit of success in those early rounds on map number 1. So that would be my suggestion. It's up to them to see if they want to do that.
All right, well, we'll find out. The map is, in fact, going to be loading up, so you guys are going to take it away. Chat, give XSET your energy if you want them to win. If not, just keep cheering for Team Liquid. It's totally your choice. I'm going to dip out on set T-Squared. Take it away.
Thank you so much. And it's time to get into what could be the final map of the series now, Tom. Heading over to artillery. We know it. We love it. We've seen it since the, very, very early days of Apex Legends, from day one in all of its different iterations. And this is something that, again, I look at Team Liquid, they know every single inch, every single pixel of this map and everything that can be used to their advantage. It's difficult to see XSET coming back in the series.
It is a little bit difficult, but, artillery is one of these areas that's pretty straightforward, right? You only can play the high ground or you can play the low ground. It's kind of similar to how Gardens is, except it's not, okay? So I want to see XSET basically playing something a little bit, unorthodox in terms of their weapons, right? They're going to need to do something a little bit more aggressive. They're going to have to fly at Team Liquid, because we were just talking about how Liquid's been able to just pick them apart, waiting for their opportunities, and then starting to collapse. And it's almost like they were toying with XSET towards the final part of Gardens. And that's something that you have to be worried about if you're XSET side. You want to be like, all right, you know what? I'm a little upset they were going for the melees towards the tail end of the final rounds there.
Hey, look, melees, they do the damage. As I say, there's no more satisfying thing than punching out your opponent in Apex Legends. And you can call me toxic for doing it. I don't care, because it is, okay? But, we've just had a little bit of a stall there on the start. One of the players didn't load into the lobby, so we'll get that game underway as soon as physically possible. But I want to talk about Liquid again, because one thing that seems to me, I always look at 3 players when they play together and how well they mesh. And Fun, to me, is just... he's just slid into this roster, looks so comfortable. He's doing everything you could want of a teammate. And I always think with Fun, he's one of those teammates, the amount of the game that he plays, who could join any lineup and just make them strong. He does everything you could possibly want. He can play every single legend that you could possibly want. So a perfect pickup for a tournament like this is, of course, Fun.
He really is. And I think that it's because of the amount of ranked games that he's played and the amount of different rosters that he's played with. And that's going to make you understand how other players play, but what your strengths are as an individual and what you need to do to kind of apply your teamwork to their teamwork. And how are you going to coexist with your teammates, and how are you going to mesh and work together? That's really just from all the different variety that he's had in terms of teammates. And that just comes from the amount of games that he's played overall. So that's a huge attribute to have as a player. A lot of players are only good, with one or two legends, or maybe they only are really good with searching with this rank squad or that rank squad. Fun has always been someone that brings his level of play with his teammates and brings everybody up. So that's a great addition. Whether it's a permanent addition or not remains to be seen. Obviously, they're still trying to figure out a handful of different players. The good thing for Team Liquid is there's no rush for them to figure things out, right? We're in kind of the off season right now for the ALGS. There's still a couple of months. We don't know exactly when things are going to get announced. We don't know when things are going to start. But one thing's for sure is there's a little break. And that's the best time to kind of evaluate things and decide what you want to do with your roster.
Oh, 100%. I think you've hit the nail on the head there. There's no rush for them to do so. You know, as soon as the announcement comes out, I'm sure Liquid are already working in the background on who they want to pick up and, you know, what players, they want to add to their roster to make them as strong as possible ahead of the new season of the Apex Legends Global Series, which I just need to pause and say, I'm extremely excited about when that does kick off after what we saw at ALGS Championships. But good news, Tom. It seems like the map's loaded in the background. We're going to get straight into our next game in the series. An opportunity here for Liquid to close things out in a 3-0 fashion, in as strong a possible as fashion as possible. And one thing that I've took away from this, even though we have to kind of keep into consideration their opponent here, you know, XSET, Valorant lineup, maybe not as top tier Apex Legends players as some of the other teams we will see, is ever since Liquid have turned on, they've looked dominant. There really hasn't been any kind of rounds where I'm thinking Liquid ain't going to win this one.
I love the way that Team Liquid has approached the situation too, and the way that they've been able to execute round after round. I really think that one of the things that is going to be super interesting is where Apex goes over these next couple months too, Onset, especially when we're talking about when the ALGS is going to start again. While the ALGS was going on over these last couple months, this year has been crazy for Apex. We've seen so many different buffs, so many different nerfs. We've seen weapon changes. We've seen weapon additions. We've seen everything really that you would really hope for. And I think that we're in a pretty crazy meta right now. Obviously, Bloodhound remains extremely strong. Gibraltar remains really strong. But if anything's for sure, I mean, we may see a Pathfinder resurgence. We may see a Wraith resurgence, a Watson resurgence. It's gonna be super interesting to see because we know how strong Gibraltar is, right? Do you really think that Respawn is gonna keep Gibraltar as strong as it is in the current state? I mean, 95% pick rate, maybe even higher in all of the ALGSs. Yes, the character is a lot of fun to play, but let's be honest, it does need a little bit of work, and a couple characters could use some love. Maybe Bangalore, maybe somebody else.
I mean, it's crazy to think, isn't it? I always think back to the first time that I was involved in a live event at Apex Legends, which is back in Poland, and what the compositions were back then. And if you would have told me back then that Octane and Bloodhound were pretty much the guaranteed picks alongside Gibby, I would have laughed in your face because it has changed so much since then, and those legends have changed so much since back in Poland as well. But enough about Poland. That was a long, long time ago. We're here in arenas, baby, and Flanker is already flying in. And look at this coming in from Fun. He's making flicks work, and it's going to be in the favor very heavily at the moment of Team Liquid. They've already got one. The Mozambique's going to make it two, and that's a clean sweep across the board by the looks of things for Team Liquid. That was over as quick as a hiccup, Tom.
That really was. That was impressive from Team Liquid, and also the Sentinel buy. Interesting coming through, maybe looking for some clips, maybe saying, okay, I was connecting with the longbow, you know, it does even more damage but has a slower rate of fire. It's that Sentinel. So absolutely styling right there. And XSET, they did what we were talking about, taking the fight to Team Liquid. Team Liquid right now, though, they're kind of running on all cylinders. The confidence is extremely high, and confidence in any game, especially Apex, especially a first-person shooter, especially when you're trying to just, you know, basically hammer the other team into their coffin. They're basically doing that right now. I mean, it's all but, you know, over basically for Team XSET if Team Liquid continues to play like that.
And this is not just a Sentinel, Tom. This is charged up, it's amped, it's ready to go. So if Fun does manage to hit a shot with this, it is going to do a lot of damage. XSET taking the low ground this time, trying to use these little artillery bunkers to get a little bit of cover. But you can see the spread across the map at the moment could not be much better here for Team Liquid. They've got all of the height. You can see that Fun is actually going to be rotating away from the push coming in here from XSET. So good communication as well coming through from the Liquid roster.
Actually cracking an armor long range with the wingman there. One of the things that I want to point out for Flanker is that as soon as he saw someone advancing towards the other side, he advanced as well. And he's trying to, you know, get angles and add pressure and own real estate, because if you let the other team kind of run around and do whatever they want to do, they're going to formulate a plan and start adding pressure onto you. So Flanker is able to kind of maneuver over here. Nice shot right there from Fun. 75 grenades flying in. Nocturnal actually gets knocked though, because that's what they were trying to do. They realized the separation coming in from Team Liquid, so they were trying to rotate around and take the fight to where the weakest part of Team Liquid was, and that's exactly where Nocturnal was located, down towards the bottom ground right there. So a little bit of miscommunication and mispositioning from Team Liquid, and XSET's going to punish that.
So a 3v2 in the favor of XSET right now, and Fun had to close ground there to try and help out his teammate, and will have to hit some big shots if Liquid do want to turn this one around. You can see that actually managed to crawl towards Fun here, and there might be an opportunity maybe for a res. Pathfinder grapple is going to come in here, which is going to give Fun a little bit of high ground as well. Flank is going to be doing some damage with that wingman. Manages to double up with those shots as well, and is immediately trying to capitalize. And XSET, now from a 3v2, find themselves in a 2v2 as Flanker and Fun are looking to turn this one around.
And all of a sudden, it's a 2 versus 1, I believe.
Oh!
Nasty quick scope flying down for Fun. Ridiculous plays from Team Liquid. All of a sudden, the 2 versus 3 ends up in a 2 against 0. Liquid styling on him. I don't even know how that happened, besides just the nasty Sentinel shots.
I mean, you called for it, and I'm calling for a replay right now, because that was a filthy shot at the end. Oh, the quick scope! Oh, it just puts shivers down your arms, down your back, wherever you can find a place for a shiver. That kind of shot will make it work. But I mean, that's the kind of thing that Fun can do. That's the kind of thing that Liquid can do. And for XSET, they had an opportunity in that round, Tom, to close it out, and you have to say it was an opportunity squandered for them.
You can feel it in your jellies, as they say. Team Liquid now gonna be doing the victory lap over here, basically, as they are all but one round away from taking this one. And the way that this one started, again, if y'all are just joining us, XSET won the first 2 rounds of the map, and now all of a sudden Team Liquid has not dropped anything quite yet, and BCJ out in the open, just feeling the shots coming in from Nocturnal. Unfortunate that this sniper meta from Team Liquid, and you know Team Liquid's always been like this. I'm gonna blame this on Hodsick.
Always blame Hodsick, any opportunity given. Shout out to Hodsick, of course. Lovely man who we love to bits. But at the moment, Fun is trying not to be turned into bits at the moment, as he has to pop that battery and re-engage now with a Vault in hand. A little bit of a change up in weaponry this time for Fun. And now XSET trying to get aggressive. This is what they said they had to do to have success. The Mozam's going to be hitting as well. However, a 2v2 situation, and now Pure's going to have to turn around. Unfortunately, he's turning around into bad news, and now it's Nocturnal in a 1v1 here, and I'm not sure who came out on top of that one. I think it was XSET who managed to get the job done. So the aggression we were asking for, Tom, pays off in that round. XSET managed to put one on the board.
Well, that's what they need, especially because snipers are being used. They need to look for these bubble skirmishes, right? Where you're basically taking one weapon away from the Team Liquid squad. And if you're going to do that, fly in there with the Volt EVA 8, fly in there with 2 really awesome close range weapons, and you're going to stand a much better chance on the XSET side. And that's one of the things that we've been missing. So if you're going to see the Sentinel, if you're going to see the longbow in hands and that's being purchased, you know how to counter that right now. And you're going to have to avoid the high ground area. You're going to have to fight in those kind of bunkers. So it looks like we did get a server crash or a server reset. So we're going to have to get that figured out on set as we work through this.
We'll do our best. We'll get the games back underway as soon as we physically can. We're going to go for a break, though, while we get everything sorted behind the scenes. Don't worry, though. We'll get this series done. We'll get it continued, and we'll have to see if XSET can pull off one of the most heroic comebacks of all time against Liquid. We'll see you in just a few. Welcome back, everybody, once again, and as you can see, we're back into game now. Apologies for the technical delay, but Tom, the most important information to relay to everyone at home is that Team Liquid are now just a round away from being able to close this series out. It's down to XSET to turn this one around, but they did manage to win the final round that we just saw before those technical issues, so a little bit of momentum may be starting to go their way.
They did it by doing the brawl strategy that we were hoping for, where they're going to go take the fight and make sure that's a bubble fight as well, because that's what you have. You have that Gibraltar. You need to utilize that if that's going to be the case. Also, we're getting to that point where maybe you use a gold bag, or maybe you can buy a defensive bombardment. You don't have an enemy Gibraltar, and that value is extremely high. There's the bubble that we were hoping for, but you're going to have to heal inside of it. Not enough time. flanker with the damage.
Nocturnal going to be coming in as well, where that res is going down. He's going to be sliding in as the Octane, and I'm not sure that he's going to be able to get much success out of this one. He's not, because he will actually, excuse me, he will have success, and he will manage to take down the player in the bubble. But BCJ manages to get one. The only problem is he's only got about 10 HP to work with here, and he's got an angry player on his back. He managed to almost do the damage to turn it into a 1v1. However, Team Liquid will close things out here, Tom. They will win the series 3-0, 3-1 here on Artillery, and looking extremely strong as well.
That's what we were expecting from Team Liquid. It was a little bit more drawn out that they were hoping for, especially with the way that XSET opened things off. But, you know, that's what we're, you know, hoping for as well. If you're a Team Liquid fan, obviously XSET, that's their Valorant roster. So, you know, it's a Valorant effort by them as well. But unfortunately, they're going up against one of our strongest teams that we have in North America.
Yeah, I don't even think that the talent that does the Valorant shows has ever said that was a Valorant effort. So well done, T-Squared, for that one. Shoppy time too, man. You're on fire today. I'm not gonna lie. So hey, Team Liquid, very well done. You know, getting that win, and to be expected, really. Are there any positives to take away for XSET? I guess on set, you know, do you think XSET maybe showed some value that could help them in the next series, because they have 2 more matches to do?
Well, they do, and there are definitely positives to take away. They started out really well, and I think they found a game plan that's going to work for them a little bit more, and that is that aggression. They need to try and close the space. They tried to do it in that final round. Unfortunately, sometimes you got to know where your bubble is going to be going. You got to deny the line of sight with that bubble to close the ground, and it's just one of those small Apex things, right? If you don't know the dynamics and the mechanics of the bubble, it can fail a little bit. So there's definitely positives for them. They know how they want to approach things. They found a way to success, and the only problem is Liquid are just really good. We need to give them a lot of credit as well. Liquid are a hell of a lineup, and some of these shots we saw from Fun as well with the Sentinel were a pleasure to watch.
I felt like he was
disgusting.
Reflection, I felt like he was running with the bubble out, kind of like he got the football for an interception and he just returned it back for a touchdown. He was holding it in the air like he just won something, you know, for so long, and then the bubble finally came out. So that was unfortunate, but that was kind of a little bit too late for XSET. They realized that they needed to be utilizing the bubble by the end of the rounds. And unfortunately for them, every time they went to go use the defensive bombardment, Liquid was nowhere to be found. And there's the late bubble that we were talking about. But Team Liquid, they were just ready for this. And Fun has been being a great addition. I think it was game number 2. Was it map number 2 that he won that clutch 1v1 towards the end with the shotgun? I think it was.
That was in fact map number 2, yeah, that he was able to win in that 1v2, and he did it, I think, with 1 HP by the end of it too. Like, it was absolutely incredible. I know chat was popping off after that one. Yeah, Fun, obviously a great addition. That Sentinel shot, as Onset said, was just nasty. Like, I was losing my mind. I'm glad I wasn't on comms at that point in time. But really, the hero though for the roster seems to be Nocturnal. I mean, Nocturnal across all 3 maps just slayed out. I want to say his highest game was like 8 eliminations. Map 2 was like 6, and then map 3 ended up being 5. His DPS was incredible too. So it's not like he was just getting the finishes, whereas the DPS was being outputted by the other members. In this case would be Flanker and Fun. No, Nocturnal was picking up those eliminations when he needed to. And Fun was just kind of that cherry on top, if you will, on set. So Fun, great addition, as T-Square said. Team Liquid, once they heated up, once they lost those first 2 rounds of map 1, I think that was the waking up call that they needed. They're like, we're not going to lose this. They might not have been as serious off the rip on set, but once those first 2 rounds hit hard, they said, okay, enough is enough. Let's play serious.
Yeah, it's, as I say, it's the Apex Legends equivalent of the alarm clock going off just before you expected to wake up, you know? It's kind of like, oh, what is that? Oh, okay, all right, now it's time to go, sort of thing. But once they found their flow and they found that rhythm, one thing that really impressed me about Liquid as well was their spacing across the map. And a really good example of that was on Artillery as well. They were so quick to get advantage of high ground or any kind of head glitch angle that they could find. And they were always covering each other's backs as well. It's one thing to have these high grounds and great positions, right? But you got to make sure that you're covering each other's lines of sight and each other's blind spots, and that's one thing they were doing extremely well. So Liquid, I think, not only set up the success in that series that we've just seen, but against some of the other pro teams we'll see, I think Liquid are going to be very difficult to beat.
They might be. And T-Square, before we get out of here, just quick question to you. Obviously, Team Liquid not choosing to run a Gibby. Is that something you think can hurt them against maybe a more well-versed Apex team? Would Bangalore, is Bangalore the strongest pick? Obviously, it works with Flanker's case in this matchup, but do you think in the future Bangalore could be maybe potentially an issue?
That's something that they've used for quite some time, and they've used it in the ALGS. They've also been running it in ranked for as long as I can remember, going up against Flanker, and he's been one of the strongest Bangalores that we have in North America. To answer your question, though, yes, that could come back to bite them because we're going to see these pro teams using the defensive bombardment, using the bubbles, but Team Liquid's going to understand the situation of where they are weak reflections, so they're going to counter that by full sending it into the enemy's bubble when that bubble does go down.
All right, fair enough. Well, we'll see. I mean, only time will tell, but for now, TL can rest easy. They get their first victory in their pool. They look incredible, and obviously you need to take them seriously. If you weren't taking them seriously, you really need to wake up and say, okay, we need to bring our A game, especially when we have to play against them in that pool. But regardless, though, we've seen 2 great series already. 2 NA teams faced off, 2 EU teams faced off, and then coming up next is going to be Renegades going against G2. Another great series, and on Set T-Squared, you guys are going to hop off. I'll be joined by Fallout and Girl, but don't go anywhere, guys. Coming up next, like I said, great series, G2 Renegades. We'll be right back.